All right, here's part 4 and the final part of this episode of Compare and Contrast, where I'm taking the Wizard of Oz and the Wiz and showing y'all how similar and different they are in efforts to mend a divided nation. Now, remember in the last part, I told y'all only Dorothy and Toto were kidnapped in the Wizard of Oz. Toto somehow finds them. He has amazing directional skills for a dog and brings him back to the castle. These fools steal 3 uniforms from the guards, dress like them, and that's how they get in the castle. And I just know there are some nerds that saw this scene and went, oh, wee-yo, whoa. And I'm one of them. I'm one of the nerds. I also want to call out that the guards' faces are also green. I want to know the story behind that. So the 3 of them manage to find Dorothy's room and they break in right before the timer runs out. And who do they run right into when they walk outside? Elphaba. But as we know, the Scarecrow is smart, so he finds a way to drop an entire chandelier onto the guards. And this pisses her off. So she literally set Scarecrow on fire. Now back at the Wiz, it's a bit dark. Instead of Eveline just chasing them and locking them up, she hooks them up Saw style. And when Eveline tries to take the slippers with magic, this happens to her hands. And as a child, my hands hurt for days watching this. Not realizing that it was a Muppet, but whatever. And that pisses Eveline off. But instead of her setting Scarecrow on fire, she does something much more heinous. She starts to torture her friends in front of Dorothy. She saws Scarecrow in half and he's like, don't worry about it, I can't feel it. She uses an iron press to flatten Tin Man in front of Dorothy, mind you. And then she pulls Lion up by his tail and has him hanging in the air by his tail. It was insane. And Dorothy is just watching this and is beside herself the entire time. The acting wasn't great, but she was sad. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse than this, Eveline turns on that incinerator and looks at Dorothy dead in her face and says, now would you like some mustard and sauerkraut for your hot dog? And is referring to Toto. Child, she about to take that dog and throw him in the incinerator. And as Dorothy is about to take her shoes off because she's like, no, you cannot kill my dog in front of me, the Scarecrow, just like in the Wizard of Oz, is like, Dorothy, look. And we see that there's a sprinkler system to put the fire out. Dorothy tricks Eveline, jumps up and pulls the fire alarm, and Eveline screams, no, I'm allergic to water. And she melts. And that's how the witch in the Wiz dies. But back in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy throws a bucket of water onto Scarecrow to try to put him out, and the witch is standing in the way. And that's when the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz melts. And it cracks me up because she goes, oh, how could a little girl like you put out my wickedness? Oh, what a world. And she's just going into the ground. Now, the guards of the Wicked Witch in the West immediately are like, oh my God, you killed her. Thank you so much. And they give her the broom and they're like, go do whatever you need to do because you freed us. But y'all guessed it by now. Y'all know that's not all they did in the Wiz. Get ready for another musical number, yup. Now to this day, when certain terrible people perish, all I can hear is, can you feel a brand new day? Can you feel a... Ladies and gentlemen, I love to break it to y'all that Brand New Day was written by none other than Luther the Vandross. And the second Eveline flushes down that toilet, everybody breaks out into song and dance. And this dance goes on for 8.5 minutes. And in the middle of them dancing, they start to unzip their faces. And this is when we learned that lady had them working in a sweatshop with full mascot outfits on because she didn't want them to look better than her. And these people dance in their underwear and give us a show. Kicks and all. I mean, this is peak 70s. Like, this is just what they did. The Flying Monkeys are also happy to see Eveline go. And so they tell Dorothy and them to hop on their motorcycles and they take them to a quick entrance to get to the Wiz. Now, back at the Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, as promised, has brought him the broom. The wizard yells at them and tells them to go away and come back tomorrow. And this is when Toto says, I got to do everything around here. And he goes and he opens up that curtain and it reveals that this man is a whole fraud. So they confront him. But like the scammer he is, he's like, oh yeah, I could still give y'all's gifts though if y'all want. And they fold. He gives Scarecrow a PhD. He gives Lion a Medal of Courage and gives Tin Man a heart that looks like it was out of TJ Maxx or Marshall's. So they say, well, what about Dorothy? What about her going home? He says, well, I have an air balloon. I can just take her back myself. Now, this is where we differ. Because if I was Dorothy, Cynthia, Regina, Nicole, Gail, ain't no way an atom of my melanin would have touched that basket. No, ma'am. Girl, I'll walk. Hell, I've walked 16 miles to get here. I'll walk back. And lo and behold, in that basket, the only being with melanin was Toto. And Toto hops out and is like, absolutely not, girl, I'm getting up out of here. Well, actually, he's chasing a cat, but still. And Dorothy can't catch up and he can't lower it back down, so he just flies away. Now back in the Wiz, the flying monkeys know a shortcut to get to the Wiz's lair. And lo and behold, they walk in and it's this man. Looking just sad. It's Richard Pryor, by the way. And this fool is like, I guess y'all caught me. Yes, I'm a phony. I'm a politician from New Jersey, and this kind of is what I do now. Baby, they are reading him for filth this entire scene. But he lets them know he also got there via air balloon, just like in The Wizard of Oz. And he says if Eveline knew that he was not actually a wizard, she would have killed him. And that's why he told them to get rid of her first, but he didn't know they were actually going to be able to do it. Now, unlike in The Wizard of Oz, he doesn't have any gifts to give them because he's a literal loser. But Dorothy, on the other hand, says, don't be sad, guys. You were the one that figured out that I needed to turn on the sprinkler system. Lion, you helped us out of the subway. Tin Man, you have the biggest heart of anybody in this room. You have so much compassion. And Dorothy is the one that reminds all of them that they actually have had these gifts the entire time. Back in The Wizard of Oz, we are yet again on the Glinda hate train because Glinda has watched all of this and now she has landed and tells Dorothy, don't worry, you could have gotten home the entire time. All you have to do is just think about home and click your heels 3 times and you'll go home. And Scarecrow is asking the good questions because he's like, well, why didn't you tell her that before? Hell, she could have been home by now. We did all of this. And she's like, look, she wouldn't have believed me. She had to figure it out for herself, and now she knows what she's capable of. No, Glinda, you just wanted her to do your dirty work. You know what? It's not that serious. This is a movie. But Glinda pissed me off. So Dorothy says goodbye to all her friends, and for some reason says, I'm going to miss you the most, Scarecrow, in front of everybody else. And I thought that was shade, but anyway. Glinda tells her to imagine home and click her heels 3 times. She does just that, and she wakes up back in black and white in Kansas. And this is when we realize this was all a fever dream. Because that glass from the tornado hit her in the head and knocked her out, and Auntie M found her in her bed. But Dorothy is convinced that she just went on this whole journey and met all these people who she already knew. And she's like, you know what? There really is no place like home. So now remember, she wanted to get out of there. And now she's like, I need to be right here. This is where I belong. And that's how The Wizard of Oz ends. However, back at the Wiz, Glinda yet again pissing me off because now she wants to show up. After all of this, you're the reason that Dorothy is there in the first place. And let me remind y'all why. Because remember, Glinda is the one that created the snow tornado and blew it towards Oz. And now after all of this, after I've yet again done your dirty work, you want to show up with your gang of floating babies and be like, believe in yourself. Woo, yeah. You know what, Lena Horne? Keep it. Lena Horne is a very talented actress and I do miss her dearly. But that, another Glinda that pissed me off. And while Dorothy was reading The Wiz for Phil, telling him that he cannot just be stuck up in his room for years and living in his fears, he has to get out there because there's a whole world out there, she realizes, oh, pot calling the kettle black because I've been in my auntie kitchen for 26 years and been staying in this same job for 5 and ain't did anything else. So Glinda tells her she can also click her heels 3 times and she will get back home. And this is when we get the infamous song, Home. Now, I prefer the Stephanie Mills version, but Diana Ross did just fine. And she says goodbye to the Scarecrow and all of them, and she sings Home, and you see the characters in her memory just kind of going past as she thinks about them. She clicks her heels 3 times, and on the 3rd click, she's back in Brooklyn or Harlem. She picks Toto up, and she runs in the house. And that's it. There is no, I swear, there is no ending. That's literally it. We're just like, okay, so Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz was like, oh, there's no place like home. And she was like, well, I mean, I do enjoy home, but I do think I'm about to go ahead and pack my bags and get up out of here. Complete opposites. Now, I hope y'all enjoyed the first episode of this series. The next compare and contrast will be Cinderella. The Brandy Cinderella versus another Cinderella that I gotta figure out. And I want y'all to remember, this series is actually here to bridge a gap, okay? There's a lot of division, but what I want y'all to think about is the fact that this is the same story, but just different paths, different understandings of culture, and both Dorothy's got home. Do you understand? This is what I'm saying. So regardless of which film you had never seen before, now you understand somebody else's point of view from the film that they had seen that you hadn't. Okay? Let's remember that. And with that concept in mind, if you have film suggestions, remember, compare and contrast, send them to me.